Now, before we start talking about your book, I just have to say that, I'm trying hard. I have my Facebook account. I set it up. And I actually have a Twitter account, and I have an awful lot of followers. But I haven't quite gotten to the point of where I feel it's incumbent upon me to tell people all the time what I'm doing. So perhaps you can start off by just explaining, like, what is that, mystique? What is it that, causes people to say, I'm walking the dog now, I'm buying my newspaper now, and why do people want to know?
Well, I'll start by rocking your world. That is not what you should be doing on Twitter.
Okay.
They sort of set themselves up for defeat by labeling the little box where you type, what are you doing? But that is not what people are interested in. You are absolutely correct. And if I hear one more people say, why do I care what you had for lunch today? I'm going to pull my hair out.
Okay, so what should people be doing?
What you should be doing is sharing observations, passing along news, sending jokes, passing along links to cool things you've seen on the web, asking questions, participating in conversation.
That's what you do, right? You ask people questions and ask them to tell you things, like,
yeah.
For example, cure to the hiccups?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's how this whole thing started. I was trying to demonstrate Twitter in front of an audience. And so I said, well, let me show you. There's never been a forum quite like this. It's two-way, it's real-time, it's targeted people. And I said, for example, what's your favorite cure for hiccups? And in 10 seconds, all these responses from my followers started rolling back on the big screen. And they were funny. It's not like the morons on YouTube comments or MySpace or whatever. These are like, I later found out 80% of Twitter people have college education. The average age is 35. It's not
really.
It's not teenagers. And they were like, cure for hiccups. Just hold your breath until Windows 7 comes out, or open your 401k statement. That'll cure the hiccups right away. And I told my wife about this. I'm like, those people are really funny. And without blinking an eye, she goes, you should do that. You should ask a question every night and then publish the funniest results in a book. What I found is that there's a special talent that certain people have that they have no other forum for, which is the one-line joke. So, for example, one of the challenges was compose the subject line of an email you really don't want to open. And the answers were like, to my former sexual partners as required by law. Or, Ari, what seems to have been your car. And perhaps my favorite, from your publisher, subject, ha, good one. Could you send the real chapter now, please? You would definitely not want to open that one.
So all of this seems like a lot of fun. I'm sort of wondering, how much sort of in-depth information can you sort of, get from this? I mean, it's sort of like, you walk into a room and, there's 1,000 people there and you're like, hey, guys, give me your one-line answer. But like sort of, then what?
Well, I mean, in terms of this book, it is a humor book. It is filed in the humor section, but there were also some more serious things. I asked people to describe their most embarrassing moments ever. One of my favorites is a coworker asked me if I had a sec to help a customer. My reply, I have lots of sex. Most embarrassing moment ever. Or your greatest regret. Or one time I said, describe your 15 minutes of fame. You cannot believe who came out of the woodwork. One guy wrote, my stepfather was the agony of defeat guy on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the car crashing at the Daytona 500. Or
I thought that was a skier that skied off a mountain.
Yeah, he says right before the skier.
Oh, right before the skier.
And then they show this car crash.
Oh, my God, I forgot. But now I remember.
And then I heard from the girl who's on the Girl Scout cookies box for the last 9 years. That's her picture.
Now, there are all sorts of people. There's like the whole sort of Twitter versus Facebook debate, and there are people who sort of like, don't waste your time with Facebook. It's not really targeted. You can really target Twitter. You should, really try Twitter. Do you sort of have a position on that, and you sort of, would you denigrate Facebook or say it's a waste of time?
No, I'm actually a little baffled by all the comparisons. I mean, they serve two different functions. Yes, there's a "what are you doing now" component to Facebook as well, but also, again, I think the demographic is really different. I mean, in my experience, and maybe it's just because my followers tend to be like my demographic, but I've found them to be literate and funny and older and educated and
just like you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Handsome, tall, but Facebook began life as a service for college students, so they later opened it up, but it tends to be a younger group.
Is there any threat here of people not being able to sort of hang on to a narrative arc that sort of what you can say in, what is it, 140 characters, 160,
140,
140 characters. There's a whole lot of, a haiku is great, but, a haiku is not War and Peace.
Right. But, did anyone say that question when haiku came out? Oh, here's a 3-line poem. This is the end of poetry. I do hear...
Yeah, except that you can really spend all your time tweeting. I always want to say twittering, but I will just invoke Brian Lehrer again. Twitter is not a verb. But, there are people who do that, or the people that clearly are spending all their time on Facebook writing these, very short things. And, I sort of... I look at my daughter and, everything is like a sort of text message length. And it's a really hard thing to sit down with something that, sort of takes a long time for payoff.
Well, except that if we're saying what's going to happen to books, for example, well, book sales are only skyrocketing. They're not impacted by this at all. The one thing I've learned in 10 years writing about technology for the New York Times is in technology, things don't replace things. Things just add on, right? So radio didn't go away when TV came along, and movie theaters didn't go away when the DVD came out. And it's the same thing with Twitter. It's not the end of anything. It's just the beginning of another channel.
I think Ben from Greenwich Village has a reaction to your comment about the media. Is that right, Ben?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, you say that technology doesn't get replaced. It just supplements itself and gets added on. But how come you can't buy a Polaroid camera anymore? How come no one's hunting with spears anymore? I think technology always replaces older technology once it becomes ubiquitous.
Okay, I was referring to consumer technology. So
cameras, Polaroid, that's consumer technology.
Yep, film went away and the 8-track went away, but I can give you many more examples. So LP records are still around. Everyone's using iTunes, but CDs will still be around. I think there are many more examples that show that things don't replace things in consumer tech, especially not when it's something like, will Twitter replace journalism or will Twitter replace books?